Hello, everyone. One of the things I'm asking for patience for, of course, is for you to bear with me and with us as we figure out how to do videos and recordings and get them posted. I had planned on doing this sermon as a video. However, I couldn't figure out how to do it while it looked like I was actually looking at you, because that is what I'm trying to do right through my laptop as I read this off. I am trying to see your eyes and your wonderful faces like I do every other Sunday morning. It is a joy to me, and it's a joy to remember that this morning. Now, one of the things we might think is that we would go for a dramatic shifting up, or a shifting out, or a change, or something that has to do with this coronavirus, this pandemic that the World Health Organization has declared. And our president has now declared it a national emergency. And we're all having different reactions to it and different understandings of it. And the decisions we've been making so far have been for the sake of others as well as for ourselves, so that we don't run a risk of giving somebody this virus that nobody has an immunity to just yet. So it seemed to me that actually proceeding on our path of thinking about spiritual practices through Lent would be a good way to go. And of course, in God's providence, we can see in this passage a story that helps us nurture and nourish our lives through spiritual practice, even for such a time as this. So last week, we were thinking about Jesus' conversation with Nicodemus and what he was teaching about being born from above by the Spirit. You might remember that we noticed that we can't actively make ourselves be born, that to be born of the Spirit is to open ourselves, orient ourselves to God, who gives us new life through Christ by the Spirit. Now, in this passage, we see Jesus in another conversation. And of course, this conversation, this passage, this story has so very much going on in it. I could take some time to list out all the different themes that we see in here and the different contextual facts that give life and heft to this passage. But you'll be glad to know I took that whole section out because it can go on for so long. There is so much going on in this story. And within this story, what I want to draw our attention to is how Jesus engages the woman at the well. Jesus is in the midst of a journey in which he has to go through Samaria. He doesn't avoid the Samaritan woman as she comes toward him. Instead, he offers her hospitality by engaging her in conversation and asking her for the water he needs. Now, clearly, even as he asks for that water, the one that comes out of our faucets, he is connecting with her, this woman at the well, about how we understand what this need is and how deep it goes. Obviously, the sense of need that he is talking about includes the whole person. Indeed, true life includes the body and also the soul, the heart and the mind. And indeed, the water provided at this well was a gift from God to their ancestor Jacob, just as all our lives now are grounded in God and wouldn't exist without God. Now, for the past weeks, what has caught my attention is the fact that this woman was going about her daily routine. That daily routine included walking to and from the well, the physical work of carrying her vessel to the well, filling it, and then taking it back filled to her people. We all understand this, right? We all have daily routines that take effort. We have to remember to take our meds. We have to prepare food or go somewhere to get it. We have to clean dishes, do shopping, walk the dog, feed the cat and the chickens, sweep the floor, check on loved ones, get dressed, take a shower or a bath, go to work, fill out forms, The list goes on, and we have to do these things even when we're tired or alone. We share that same human experience with this woman at the well. Every day, like her, we put one foot in front of the other and do what we need to do. And just like her, it surprises us when the normal, everyday things that are in our life is where all of a sudden we come upon Jesus. And I think in different ways this has probably happened to most of us, right? It's not just that something about Jesus becomes clear all of a sudden when we're not expecting it. It's that, like the woman, all of a sudden we are surprised by Jesus engaging us, by Jesus talking directly to us, to the whole people we are, in our bodies, our hearts, our minds, our spirits. Sometimes we see this when we go through our normal church routines during Sunday when we have worship. We can say the same prayers over and over again, follow the same pattern over and over again. And then every once in a while, maybe it's that prayer that we've said 1,000 times, all of a sudden makes us cry, bring tears to our eyes. We might have no words for it, but suddenly something truthful, spiritual about us and God becomes clear to us. Sometimes this happens in line when we're behind someone who finds they don't have enough cash. And all of a sudden it becomes clear to us that Jesus is engaging us in this moment to cover the rest of the cost for that person who doesn't have what they need. In relationships, we find this as well. You have a relationship that right now has some frustrations, maybe a new relationship, maybe an old one. And suddenly it becomes clear that Jesus is engaging you in the midst of that relationship. Perhaps to let go of a particular frustration. This woman at the well made a choice in an instant to greet Jesus, whom she wouldn't have expected at all when she walked out there that morning. Well, it was noon, wasn't it? The text tells us it was noon. It wasn't even her purpose for going to the well. She was simply doing a daily chore. But when she sensed Jesus engaging her, she chose to consider how full that moment was, not only with physical water, but with living water. What do we learn as we observe this fellow disciple of Jesus? What does she teach us about allowing Jesus to engage us in the moment? Well, she chose to acknowledge God's presence when she didn't expect it, even in everyday stuff. She came to understand that the Spirit and truth were both an inner and an outer experience, meaning that when we engage God from our bodies, where our bodies are in the physical world. She attended to her senses, what she saw, what she heard, and so forth. She went to the well as a steward of what she had. Her chore for her community and her own well-being, physical strength, her time. And she went to the well exactly as who she was, a woman, a Samaritan. She was aware of her status, her identity, her culture, her history. And it was within that identity that she was fully present to who was in front of her. After she went to the well, it is a very reasonable guess that she undertook her daily chore in a much different way from that point on. And it wasn't just that she noticed Jesus. She was curious about what he was saying to her. She was open and amazed, and it seems as though she was delighted. When she encountered Jesus at the well, the conversation struck her own inner sense of God. Remember, she had heard of the Messiah and was expecting him. Now, in this encounter, what she knows in her heart and her mind is witnessing to Jesus, the living water, right in front of her. This is an interesting list of characteristics of a disciple. And what's interesting to me is they are also the characteristics of the spiritual practice of pilgrimage. A lot of us have heard of pilgrimage before, of the deliberate walks that people take. There's one long one that ends up in Juan de Compostela, forgive my pronunciation, in Spain. My cousin, who is a pastor, did that walk this past summer for her 60th birthday. And it was interesting what she learned and saw, but she's one of millions of people who have done that. There are pilgrimages in the other Abrahamic religions as well, in Islam and Judaism. Sometimes people consider retreats of some sort that would allow them to make a pilgrimage, to take a long, long hike to a small chapel in the woods, for instance. There's lots of ways we think about pilgrimage. We don't normally think about taking a pilgrimage as we sit inside our homes watching the snow falling down around us. We think of pilgrimages as place to place. But the truth is, even as Jesus shows us, it's not only in our bodies, space to space, place to place, it's also in our hearts that we take these journeys. The truth is, no matter where we are in our bodies, where we are going, maybe we're not even going anywhere. Maybe we're even moving simply from one place in the house to another. Every day, we can do this purposely as pilgrims. We can deliberately expect Jesus to show up and engage us. Know that we see the holiness in our bodies because this happens when we are in our bodies, not apart from them. That is how Jesus engages us. We can deliberately remember that Jesus engaging us happens in the midst of all our resources, whatever they are. We can be present to everything around us. We can walk toward God in the midst of our everyday routine. We can deliberately be curious and open and amazed about what we notice and how God is engaging us, surprising us in unexpected moments. We can deliberately listen for and listen to God's presence already within us, bearing witness that this conversation or this meal or this walk is in fact, in this moment, a place where God is engaging us. And so we can practice pilgrimage on purpose every day, keeping this sister of ours, the woman at the well, in our imaginations, knowing that we can purposely go about our day, expecting that somehow, at some time, Jesus is going to engage us, draw our attention to something. The more we listen for and seek God's presence every day, the more we will recognize it. This is what pilgrims seek. The ones who take walks that are hundreds of miles long, and the ones who are confined to chairs. A pilgrim seeks. And right now, we have all been made to become pilgrims with an unexpected journey, a shockingly unexpected journey. Who knew, even a week ago, that a pandemic was going to be part of our daily lives, one way or another? But what's interesting to me is this really doesn't change anything in terms of being pilgrims. In fact, what we learn about God and the Spirit and Jesus and pilgrimage and being human in this passage gives us tools to undertake precisely this unexpected journey, to walk through these unknowns of the weeks in front of us. Consider. We seek Jesus and the living water he wants to give us in these moments, right here and now, moments of uncertainty. And we continue to go forward moment by moment to seek him, knowing that somehow, sometime in this journey, he will engage us. And could a journey be any more about our physical bodies and the physical bodies of others than this journey? We are practicing social distancing with our bodies in our homes or our workplaces precisely in order to love others, to see God's presence in other people. What we are doing now is all about the bodies that God created for us, the bodies that God created us to be. And as we're going forward in these days of the unknown, we do this with everything we have right now. We don't have to have other resources other than the ones we have right now, because that is where Jesus is going to meet us. Whatever it is in terms of strength or money or space or companionship, that is how we take the journey. We go forward in this uncertain time, not simply just to the end of it, but instead through it toward God, who is our source, our goal, and our guide along the way. We can go forward day by day, curious and open to what Jesus is saying to us. We can listen to the Spirit's witness in our own being, helping us to recognize Jesus when he engages us. Friends, we are all having different reactions to this new reality and sudden change of routine. We don't have to worry if ours is the right reaction or the wrong one, really, because we don't go forward as separate individuals. We go forward as a community of pilgrims who together are seeking God. We are seeking together Jesus' teaching and assurance. At a time like this in the life of the church, not just with these sudden closings and change in routine, but in the life of this congregation seeking what God is leading it to do next, surely in that we go forward as a community of pilgrims. We seek Jesus' teaching and assurance together. After all, it is to the one true living God that we travel every day of our lives. And all glory be to the one true living God alone, now and forever. Amen.